So we are recording. Cool.
Mhm.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Dominating Diversity, the show where we dive deep into real stories and challenge norms and center equity, empathy, and change. I'm your host, Brooke here, and today's guest is someone who brings insight, heart, and bold truth to every conversation that they're a part of. Joining me is Aster Cosmos. They're an educator and educational designer and passionate neurodiversity and EDI advocate who's been transforming how institutions think about inclusions from boardrooms to classrooms. Aster, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Brooke. Thank you. I'm really glad to be
Hi.
here.
So it's funny because we don't usually chat like this. We're usually chatting in meetings and other sorts of things
Yes,
through work, but here we are doing something else to make an impact, which is always fun.
and I'm very
So
excited to.
I want to start at the center of your story. How do you currently describe your identity? And how has your experience as a non-binary neurodivergent person informed your approach to EDI? Sorry, how has it approached?
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I guess in terms of identity, I tend, I tend to use a lot of different labels for myself. And sometimes I'll change which labels I choose to use in different contexts based on what I think is going to be most straightforward for people to understand. So in principle, non-binary is an umbrella term which describes my gender. Technically, I don't have a gender. It's like 404, gender not found. So in more specific terms, I tend to use the language of agender, which means you don't have one. But I've also come to taking on board the Autigender label as well, which kind of speaks to the interconnectivity of one of understanding of gender and the experience of being an autistic human.
Hmm.
And it's something I can definitely unpack. But it was one of those things where when I was going through my personal journey here, that was the thing that really connected all of the dots for me. So yeah, I generally either depending on who I'm with, I'll go into more detail. Some cases I'll say that I am multiply neurodivergent. Sometimes I will say that I'm an ADHDer. It depends on what I think people are sort of ready to hear
Hmm.
and what they would understand. And based on how much time I have, I may explain some things, or I may just say it because it's me and people can accept it if they want to accept it, but it's not really my responsibility if they don't.
Yeah, which I guess in our area in higher education, people are a little bit more open-minded to those things, which probably makes it
True.
easier as as you to be able to be you, right?
Yes.
In other areas, it might be a little more difficult for people to understand that, and you'd have to
Yeah.
be explaining yourself more. So, do you think that gender diversity and neurodiversity are still being treated as separate conversations, even though they do overlap, as you just said?
Yeah, they do overlap. And I think a lot of things are being treated as separate conversations, which are not exactly. I kind of sometimes I feel a bit funny about this because we are all intersection. We are intersectional humans. We have so many overlapping and sometimes conflicting elements of our identities, and you can't kind of take one part, stick it in the overhead compartment, as you're like, all right, today my neurodivergence is I put it away in the locker. I'm navigating my life without it. I purely am a this now. So it doesn't really work that way. And different sorts of cultural backgrounds also play into things as well. So it's
Right.
all very connected. And when we try and act as if we're okay, now we are doing this program which is for folks with ADHD. Um, well, okay, the experience of someone with ADHD will be different depending on their gender, depending on their religion, depending on all kinds of various things. The ways that they've
Mhm.
needed to act to fit into the world are different. And so
Yeah.
you need to take an approach that is integrating all these different parts. Otherwise, you're not truly addressing um, even the experience of folks with ADHD, because you're just kind of getting a very narrow slice of it. So I do think that they're artificially separated. I know that it's complex
It is
and messy and
complex,
takes
yeah.
longer, but that's what we need to consider to do things
Mhm.
justice.
I know even when I don't know, I'm many things.
Mm,
I'm disabled, I have health conditions, I'm ADHD, I'm autistic, I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm pansexual, I'm all of these things, and it's super
yeah.
difficult to when someone says, "Who are you?" or "What do you want me to say? Do you want me to give you all the labels of what I am?
Mm,
Or are you saying, who am I?" It's always a really difficult thing to navigate when people say that. It always ends up quite awkward, I think. Um,
yeah.
and I'm in awe of you how you are so open with this, because what it does is it teaches so many other people about who being who you want to be, who you are, and having other people
Mm,
respect that. You're so widely respected around our community for being who you are. Um, you've undergone a name change, which was your name of choice, and that's been widely accepted, and because that's who you are. So
mhm.
I congratulate you on being just who you are, first of all. Um, Before, you have talked about the danger of compliance culture. So, especially in schools and workplaces, can you explain what that means here?
And so when you say compliance culture, you're talking about how sort of students are kind of expected to fit
Yeah,
in
to
with,
fit in, to
yes.
comply to what people think that they're expected to be. Yes,
Yeah. Um, okay. This is something that I could probably talk about for a very, very long
forever.
time. So I'm going to try and constrain myself. So basically, our education system operates with its own sets of rules and standards.
Mm,
Our society operates with rules and standards. These are ways that you're supposed to talk, the ways that you're supposed to act and behave. Um, they're implicit, they're implied, and people learn them by being in them. But they don't actually necessarily suit everyone. And when I say suit's probably not quite the right word. You have to mold yourself to fit into that. Sometimes you imagine I have this vague recollection of a game show where people had to put themselves in funny positions to as a cutout kind of walked past them. Some people, yeah, you perfectly fit that cutout and there's no problem. It is relative, not to say that things are ever easy for anyone, but you don't have the extra strain of having to put your legs behind your head and whatever other strange, um, probably yoga level pose, high level
mhm,
yoga pose. I don't know anything about yoga. Um, so, the fitting in has different effects on different people. So yeah, definitely for someone who is autistic, the expectations for things like eye contact, body language, different social norms, but then you can expand it and think about things like different cultural backgrounds. I've read a lot about, I mean, the term often used here is masking, but I've read a lot about this, even say, um, maybe someone who is a recent immigrant, and there are certain ways of speaking and behaving where they grew up, but then suddenly they're popped they're popped in this new societal structure, and suddenly it's now considered it now comes across that they lack confidence when actually they're being deliberative. They're taking the time to think about things. In their culture, you don't just pipe up with whatever random thought you have. No, you're supposed to listen deeply and take your time. So these sort of cutouts that we have to fit within force all of us to behave in one homogenous way when actually we're not. And there are actually a lot of benefits to having that heterogeneity, to having that difference in ways of thinking, ways of acting. It helps us overcome groupthink. It gives us access to so many different perspectives, ways of thinking and seeing the world. But when you're forced to fit into a cutout, you are trimming back parts of yourself. And that's difficult. That's not good for our well-being. It makes it harder for us to participate meaningfully in the learning or society, whatever it is. So it's harder for us having to do that cutting out, but also it's a net disadvantage, I would say, to the group who then loses access to a whole bunch of really valuable insights and thoughts that not are not necessarily coming from because, oh, this person that we've cut out is some genius. It's just there is value in having diversity of thought, in
Mm.
having to challenge ourselves and be open-minded to what other people have gone through. And so
Yeah.
we miss out on a lot of that by having the cookie cutter approach.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, but as you touched on as well, I do have obviously I've moved around the world a little bit and I've seen a lot of different cultures and
Mm,
I do see how diversity changes with different cultures and it changes within different communities and religions. And I have been quite touched, I guess, living in small regions in Indonesia where there is
mm,
one way to be. And it's a way that you're birthed and it's a way that you're given. And it's the religion that you're assigned at birth. And that to me, coming from such a diverse background, I think that touched me differently in some way. And I am trying to do some work with countries like that to allow people to see diversity. I've seen people that have assigned male at birth, obviously, and they are gay, but they still have to marry a woman and they still have to have
mm,
children. And what that does is it really, um, it's a punishment for the woman for the rest of their life, having someone that doesn't really love them, loves them as a friend, but doesn't really love them. And for the male, they can't be who they want to be as well. So it locks two people into something that they don't want to be. I don't, that was
yeah.
quite random of me to bring up, but that's something that I've seen and that has sort of,
Yeah, I think, yeah, so I guess what you're describing is two people that have been forced to fit into a mold. So there's
right.
this
Yeah.
sort of expectation
Compliance
of,
culture. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it
right.
is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't suit them. They will go on to be very unhappy because
Yeah.
actually they can be really good friends, but
Yeah.
actually one of the parties does not have feelings for the
They
other
don't have the
person, but they are expected
capability
to.
to love that gender. And
Yeah.
they will go on loving other males, but they can never go there. So it's holding them back. And I guess what I've seen is two parents who loved their child very, very much. And they've been practicing religion their whole life, and they know that they know what they know is that when they follow their religion and their culture, that they get good things, and God is
Mm,
on their side. So they try and do the best for their children, and that, in their eyes, is the best for their children. But is it really the best for their children? So that's what I
mm,
sort of seen as I traveled and seen different cultures, and it's so different in every culture. Um, I guess back to the conversation. So in your advocacy work, how do you help organizations move from checkbox diversity to something a little deeper? Because I know that you do
mm.
it.
Yeah, I think it's complex. Um, and I think one of the big challenges is so it's not an easy thing to do. It's really not. I think it's easy to have the tick box to be able to say, yep, we now have X percentage of new recruits who are blah,
Yeah.
and we've done that through whatever mechanism. But then that's not quite the same as making sure that you've sort of, what's the word? You've actually sort of created intentional space for that diversity, for the diversity of thought, for the diversity of experience.
Mm,
Um, where are those people in the organization? Are they all in these sort of junior roles? I think it's ultimately, to me, it always comes back to voice.
yeah.
Um, and I mean, every time I think about this, I do also think about the Uluru Statement from the Heart as well. But it's a core principle of social justice, the having the ability the representational side. So it's not just we are doing this for you. Oh, aren't we so amazing? It's what do you need? What are the challenges for you?
Right.
What would help you?
Yeah.
Like, let us
Filling
learn
the gaps.
from you.
Yeah. Yeah. And learning, and the younger generation is so full of
I know.
inspiration, which is so wonderful. And not, let's not put an age label on this because, gosh, we work with some amazing people of all ages who have
Yeah.
amazing things that they bring to the table. Um, I guess, like, you know that at the moment, I'm really very passionate about the trauma-informed frameworks and
Mm,
uh, anything that fills a gap, you know. There's people from all over that struggle with certain things, and that hasn't been addressed as well as it should have been from the very
mm,
beginning within educational frameworks. And I guess why we are so passionate about working in this higher education space with equity and diversity and inclusion is because this is where our next generation of
mm.
movement makers are going to come from, you know. So I've seen you and I have collaborated with a lot of things, but I've
Mm.
seen your work, and what I love about it is it just it jumps out of the box, and people expect it from you, and they know it's from you, and that's what I love about talking with you is that you have all these different ideas that are blending together. So when we're talking about intersectionality, for example, we have the neurodiversity and we have gender and we have all of these different things that
Mm.
you're saying that we can be who we are. What I didn't know about, and I'm autistic, by the way, is what was it?
Oh, Autigender.
Autigender. When did you start hearing about this?
Oh, how much story time do you want?
Oh, give it to me.
Um, yeah, so I think so that was actually interestingly, that was the pathway for me into exploring neurodivergence for myself in the first place.
Yeah.
So I actually first started grappling with my gender or lack thereof. And it was really just an incidental conversation that I had with my sister, where she basically said, what you're describing there, that way of perceiving the concept of gender sounds, and you may find it interesting sort of thing. And I think that there's a there's a site that has like descriptions of all these different sort of gender identities, sexualities, etc., etc. And I was looking at some of um, for Autigender and a few other of them. It had examples of the kind of thinking that folks may have. So it's obviously just some examples.
Mm-hmm.
And I read through one of them and I was like, that is exactly how I conceptualize gender. Like it was almost like it had been pulled from my brain,
Yeah.
pasted onto the website for me to find later. So that was actually my pathway into exploring neurodivergence for myself.
Well,
Um,
I hadn't heard of that before, to be honest. So I've learnt something today. So may I ask, how old were you? At what stage in your life did you start exploring these types of things? Was it something that just clicked for you, or?
yeah, so I know a lot for folks who are kind of who are in that sort of queer questioning space.
Hmm,
Folks talk about the sort of like the egg crack moment
right.
where, you know, something was completely outside of your awareness, completely outside of your awareness, and then something brought it to your attention, and then it's like a whole world sort of opens up for you. So for me, it was, and I had gone through, for a long time, I just thought I was a very, very like, um, just a very motivated advocate. That's what I thought I was.
Yeah.
I was like, I really wanted to be a good ally. And later on, I realized maybe I was trying to be an ally to myself as well, and I
Yeah.
didn't realize. So it was just I'd done like all this sort of queer training and training in a lot of spaces, and then I had a conversation with a friend, and they just said something to me in passing. And then in my head, I was like, oh, that sounds kind of like a non-binary experience. And then there was like but wait, that's also how I would describe things for myself. So
Yeah.
I had never thought about it before because for me, I didn't realize that some people feel gender, like they feel like a man or they feel like a woman or
Mm.
feel like some form of gender. I never felt anything, but I didn't realize that you were supposed to. And it was a very, very long deep dive where I was, unpacking concepts of masculinity and, really trying to expose myself to how different people conceptualize gender and their experiences. And I eventually got to this point where I kept watching what people were saying, and internally I would say, I don't agree that that is something that is necessarily a male sort of thing to do or a man thing to do. But then I was reading through how other people were responding to it, and I could see, but this is true for them.
Yeah.
So that must mean that there's a difference in the way that I experience things to the way they experience things.
Yeah.
Um, so that was kind of the point where and this is really for me has been, I don't know, I'm bad at estimating periods, but definitely in the last 5 years, if not more recent. Um, but yeah, I had my egg cracks a
Yeah.
few times, a
Wow.
few layers,
An
rapid
egg cracking
succession.
moment. The more you talk, you're sort of, the more I'm thinking, like I was always such a girly girl growing up, and I loved
Mm,
all girly things and pink things. And as I've grown up, it's like, I guess my mom is a bit the same actually, but I love working. Maybe the masculinity comes out in me. I love woodworking. I love doing all of those manly things. I mean, I mow the lawns. I do all the things that my husband,
mm,
technically, if we're talking about compliance culture, my husband should
yes,
do. And
yes.
people say, you mow the lawns? Leave that to your husband. I go, really? Like, what?
That's a
I like
social
to mow
expect.
the lawn. So
Yeah.
it's just things that when we
Mm,
talk about compliance culture, I don't fit in those boxes.
mm.
I don't fit in.
A
So
lot of people don't.
you're making me think a lot because yeah, maybe all of this time I enjoy the more masculine the
Mm.
masculinity, what do you call it? Masculine activities, so to
Well,
speak.
yeah.
And I enjoy getting my hands dirty, but lots of people do, I guess. Isn't that what they used to call a tomboy? A
Yeah, so
tomboy?
like,
Someone.
yeah. So I guess my perspective here is there, and I know obviously people have their own experiences with gender, etc. But from my perspective, there are no gendered activities
Mm,
or ways of doing there from what I've gathered from hearing and reading a lot of other people, there people describe having like a sort of a feminine way of doing certain things or a masculine way of doing certain things. So it's
mm.
kind of you can go and do the woodwork and still be a woman who feels like a woman, feels it in your soul.
Yeah,
And
right.
there's you conceptualize it in a way that carries your gender identity within it because
Mm,
those sort of expectations are purely societal ones and they change from one society to the next.
yeah,
There
true.
are all kinds of different expectations on how people should behave, but it's a socialized expectation. And I know for me, I find it difficult. I logically understand that people have different experiences to me, but the way that I feel it is I can't feel it as something more than something that's established by social expectations, which
Yes.
is kind of the autistic sort of thing of how I can see but don't understand certain sort of
So much like
expectations
me.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I will. I do a lot of things and I'm sort of going, is that my autism or is it me or am I the autism? It's so difficult sometimes to understand my own mind. But when it comes to this
Mm,
sort of stuff, I mean, I'm pansexual, so I don't see someone's gender, so to speak, but I feel like I see what they're made of, what's in them,
mm,
their qualities, their strengths, more to speak. And when I was growing up, I was super confused, super confused. I married a man, And but still, I sometimes feel like I have what people would call the male roles. It's
Mm.
things do get very confused in the mind when you are speaking about this sort of stuff, and that's exactly why I wanted to bring you on here today because there's so many people out there like me that are sitting
Mm.
there not completely understanding or feeling what this is like. Um, so let's zoom out for a second. What trends or movements in EDI right now are exciting you a little bit? And there's always,
Mm.
when I say trends, it's not necessarily like a fad diet or something. It's more like
What's in the public conversation?
yeah, what's in public
Yeah.
conversation? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I know there are a lot of things for me, but I think the thing that I like that it's really becoming more prominent is the social model of disability.
Yeah.
So I think about how, um, yeah, for so long, a lot has been pathologized and sort of placed on the disabled person, the person with whatever illness, as something is wrong with you.
Yeah. That's how it
The
feels. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the way that you are disabled is to some extent your fault, quote
Yeah.
unquote. It's kind of the implication, and I've heard language from people in the past, which is kind of like which that it's kind of internalized within. Oh, I don't know, in a past life they did something wrong and they were born this way, or
Yeah.
oh, they must have done this, and it's not even limited to
Or
this
they must have committed a
disability.
sin. Or there's
Yeah,
so
or
many things and reasons that people can give out there.
yeah, and
But when we talk about
mm,
social model of
mm.
disability, what's the other side to that?
Oh, yes, yes. So basically, that says that it's the structure that we occupy which disables us. I will say there's some nuance here, like to some extent, it does depend on the disabled person themselves having agency and saying, okay, this part of my experience is disabling not because of something intrinsic to me, but because of the way that, I don't know, to use a sort of example, it'd be like, hey, let's say you're a wheelchair user.
Yeah.
The only way to get into a building is stairs, so you've been disabled by the building design.
Right.
If there was a ramp or an elevator, you get in. Some things are not quite as clear cut as that. So there may be some things where, so if I think of the sensory processing elements, of my experience as an autistic person, um, there is probably no amount of changes to the environment which could completely remove that. So to some extent, there's, I mean, it's kind of beyond the ability of the world to completely change and adapt. And in some cases, the changes and adaptations for me may be contradictory with the things that other people. You can, of course, make changes to the environment and it will make it easier, but
Hmm.
there is some fundamental element of it there that cannot be socially resolved. But other elements like the ways that I interact with other humans and judgments that may be placed upon me for acting and behaving in certain ways, that is entirely a social model of disability. It's
Right.
with sufficient awareness training and openness to other communication styles that judgment and stigma would not have to be experienced.
Right. I think I've mentioned this before, but obviously I'm an able person. I walk around.
Mm.
I have a disability pass in my car because sometimes if my heart is going way too fast, I need that car to be close. I can't walk too far.
Mm.
I have been at the mall and I've gone to park in a disability park and I've gotten out to someone abusing me. And it's happened several times.
Yeah.
Is that your parents' pass? Why are you driving around with your parents' pass? Or what's wrong with you? You look completely fine to me.
Yeah.
And I get this sadly often, sadly,
It's
because
this kind of
what
assumption you're trying to game the system somehow.
right. So I've got a disability pass on my car because I need it, and that gives me the ability to park closer to have
Mm.
accessibility. So these people make it non-accessible because of their
Yeah.
stigma. Yeah.
There was an interesting I was watching a real I can't remember what the creator's name was, but they're a wheelchair user and they often talk about their experience, and they were talking about exactly the sort of thing, because I think they were an ambulatory wheelchair user, so they could sometimes stand.
Yeah.
And one of the messages that they were getting, that they were kind of sharing, was basically, if we have this sort of artificially constrained number of, I don't know, disabled, accessible bathrooms or whatever it is, the issue is not that someone who needs it, but maybe you can't tell needs it, is using it. It's that there's probably not enough of it in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That we've
And
kind of constrained it in
it's
that
the
way.
same with car spaces too. Like when I go to the mall, there's one, two, three, five disabled car parks compared to about 300 other parks.
Mm,
Five, do they expect five? I don't know what they think. So then you'll have to drive around for 10 minutes just to wait for someone to get out of a disabled park. So yes, it's a problem. And I've been in a wheelchair myself before. And you get the people who will just get out of the way and go, "Oh, I'm sorry," and they'll move for you. And then you'll
mm,
just get people that just are rude. First of all, it's really hard being like stomach level with everyone when you're sitting in a wheelchair and you can't
mm,
see, and when you're autistic and you can't see people's faces to judge.
mm.
That's tricky in itself, but some people just won't move, or they think that equality is treating you exactly the same, so they start being rude about you being in the wheelchair and treating you like
Yeah,
anyone else. I don't know. It's a really it's a strange, strange thing that the society offers us people with disabilities. But um,
yeah.
so what about red flags? Are there ideas being presented as progressive that are actually undermining inclusion, do you think?
Um, I mean, you kind of spoke to part of it just
Yeah,
there. This sort of, you
spoiled
know,
the question.
that's okay. Yeah, I think when we're the focus is kind of trying to give everyone exactly the same thing. I think on
Yeah.
paper, yeah, that sounds like it's on track, but then we have to consider that not everyone actually needs the same things.
Yeah,
And
our needs
even
are different.
the people who, we assume are kind of able-bodied, they've got all this kind of privilege, they also have needs as well.
Yeah,
What we don't need to, we shouldn't necessarily be trying to give absolutely the exact same things to everyone. We should be trying to figure out where are the differences in need, and we can hear that from the collectives of people themselves,
yeah,
and addressing that. So we remove the barriers that people are facing, so that they have the same opportunities to thrive, as everyone should,
yeah,
rather
yeah,
than trying to say, okay, we'll just give everyone, I don't know, +5 points on this whatever arbitrary magical scale it is. It's like that's not really
yeah,
achieving very much. And the
yeah,
people who, they're we end up kind of amplifying already existing disadvantage on a
yeah.
lot of the time anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I could go on and on forever about this sort of thing. And when we talk about like equality, let's say, for example, I tried to get my super out a while ago, right?
Mm,
I can't get my super out unless I've been on Centrelink, I think it is, for 26 weeks,
mm,
which we don't have because I work full time.
yeah.
Or you are disabled and trying to get a, a car with access, wheelchair access, or something alike. What about everyone in between? Just
Mm,
because you
yeah.
work, it doesn't mean you have a heap of money, or just because you are disabled, it doesn't mean you need a mobility vehicle, or I don't know, there's so many things in between.
Yeah, you're kind
But
of
that's just
making all these,
yeah, one
yeah.
example of equality and
Mm,
inclusion
mm, mm,
um, is stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, um, I
mm,
hope there is a lot happening right now with I don't know, I hear a lot happening everywhere to be honest, but with the LGBTQIA plus community, um,
mm.
a lot of people are being forced to do training on this, and some people are fighting against that because they don't want to. What do
Oh, I've
you
heard
think
that.
about this? Because this is a huge issue right now, especially with everything happening.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, and it's so interesting because I think the sorts of arguments that kind of I think come up out of this tend to kind of position it as if gaining access to other people's experience is somehow um, overriding your sense of agency. Like I can tell you, there are plenty of people who will go through training like this. They'll basically just sit there and not really engage with it. No one can force you to incorporate, different concepts and ideas into your mind.
Right.
Um, it's just not possible. We are independent humans. We make decisions. So yeah, I think awareness training is a good thing.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
need to be able to challenge our views on the world because we have incomplete pictures. None of us know what things are like honestly for anyone who's not ourselves.
yeah.
So I think they're really powerful. But I think people need to go into it with a willingness to hear from other people, and then they can make a decision of what does that mean for their internal values. But ultimately, no one says that, okay, because you've gone to this awareness training, I don't know, you have to set fire to your personal beliefs. All
Right.
that it should be is you learn from that what kinds of behaviors you can engage with other people, which are going to be safe for them.
Yeah.
And you still need to think about your own safety and all that sort of thing. But it's you can hold whatever views you hold. It's about how you treat other people.
Yeah.
Are you treating them with respect? Are you treating them with kindness?
Mm.
Are you keeping them safe, or are you contributing to harm
Yeah.
in direct or indirect ways?
Yeah. Like uninformed is becoming dangerous. Uneducated. When you're
Mm,
uneducated and uninformed about something, you don't have any understanding.
mm.
So how can you make judgments and decisions without properly having any understanding? So I think it's important, but hey, it's a hot topic at the moment. So
It is.
what
And it's
is,
only really part of the solution as well.
yeah,
Because I think it's the first necessary step. You need to understand other people if you're going to be able to make any changes to make life more straightforward and remove some of those barriers. But it's an important first step.
yeah, I completely agree. So what's something you wish people really understood about what it means to be like non-binary or neurodivergent?
Um,
I'm sure you got one thing in that
I
beautiful
think
mind.
the big thing is probably not to try and package everyone into one singular definition. So,
Yeah.
I mean, non-binary is an umbrella term.
Yeah.
Neurodivergent is an umbrella term.
Yeah.
And even if you were to say, okay, um, we're going to be specific, we're going to talk about agender ADHDers.
Hmm.
Well, even then, yes, you're getting to a smaller group by having all the parallels of things, but still, it's one person's experience is one person's experience.
Yeah.
I've heard many times if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic
That's
person.
right. I say it
So
all the time. Yeah.
yeah, just trying
Yeah.
to be open to seeing that just because someone has this particular label, there's actually a wide spectrum and variety even
Right.
under that
Yeah.
label. And so we shouldn't be trying to treat every single human that falls under this term as if they are the same human. They still
Yeah.
have individual needs, but we just maybe have more of the context of what's going on for them.
Right. Right. And I get that too. And I've so often had people say to me, you don't look autistic. And I
Mm,
thought, well, what does autistic look like? Because if you could see in my little head, gosh, you would really know how autistic I am. That doesn't mean autistic doesn't have a look. Autistic has a way. It has a way of working, I guess. And
mm,
it's a different kind of thing. And you don't have to look autistic to have autism.
yeah.
And I did see, I've got a quote here, which I love. It says it here, so we're not broken or indecisive. We're just not built for your binary. I
I like
actually quite like that. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I like it as well. Because it's kind of speaking to the deeper pathologization. Um, the because I think a lot of people do internalize that they're broken. They're kind
Yeah,
of made to feel that there's something wrong with them, but
right.
that's something that, and it's difficult. It's so difficult to kind of rise above that and come to terms with existing in a world that was never built for you. Um, but yeah, it is that sort of artificially trying to fit someone into whatever is the most convenient box for not having to think about things.
Yeah,
And that can't capture someone. And there's nothing wrong with us if we can't fit in with those expectations. A lot of people, I know I mean, I have spoken with a lot of fellow autistics, um, about that, being expected to fit in these different ways. And I mean, I can see, I mean, I know, we all can feel the similarities between ourselves. We still see that broad difference that exists there. And a number of conversations where I will I I may literally tell people, you have value. It doesn't matter whether you're able to do this particular job and get this task done in this amount of time. That has no implications for your
right.
value as a human being.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have value. You are worthy because you are you.
yeah. I just earlier um recorded a podcast with my 8-year-old daughter who said
Um,
basically the same thing in just more of a childish way. So that's beautiful. So if you had one message for educators, one for employers, and one for someone listening who might be exploring their identity, what would they be?
okay. Hmm. I would say for educators, I know it can feel overwhelming sometimes to try and sort of handle all the sort of differences that you might have across your student cohorts. Um, it's okay to take one step at a time. You know, just do one thing that will help one sort of experience because you will help so many more people than you imagine. So just
Yeah, yeah,
taking it one step at a time, that has so much value.
it does.
Definitely
And you become
feel like you.
comfortable with the one thing, and then you can
Hmm.
do another thing.
Yeah, and then you can
You
move
don't
on.
know how many
Exactly.
people you help. Yeah, I feel,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I guess for employers, I would say listen to your staff on the front lines. What are their experiences like? Because you have diversity within your workforce.
Hmm.
You definitely, even if you don't think you do, you have diversity there.
Yeah.
Listen to their experiences. What are the barriers for them? What are their needs? And look at some ways that you can work with them to address those
Mm.
barriers.
And
And
when
that
hi-
creates,
when
hey,
hiring, I
yeah.
what gets me, and I've had it before. I've been not hired because I'm autistic. And
Mm.
I love to look back and go, look at me now, because
Yeah.
it's so frustrating when people don't see your strengths. So coming
Mm.
from me as well, if you're an employer, look at the strengths. Do not look at them as a person. Look at their strengths and who they are in here, not on the front line. It's
Yeah,
because you might find that that one person with brilliant strengths that might have ASD or might have anything else can completely change your business for the better. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Something that I like to talk about. Oh, I'm supposed to be on one message. Okay.
Sorry, to individuals.
Yes. I think I would say so. If you're out there, you're trying to figure out who you are, um, give yourself permission to make mistakes along that journey. It's not a straight path from start to end. Yeah, I think just listen to yourself. What feels right? What do you feel within yourself? And, when people talk about you, what feels nice to have spoken about you? Just, yeah, take it one step at a time. Be comfortable with it's probably going to take a while and be messy, but you will get get to the other side. And every step that you take as you become closer to your authentic self
Mhm.
is empowering and is healing to you.
I know I only had three there, but I'm going to add another one. A message to someone who is going through a difficult time, being bullied, being their parents shunning them. Um,
Yeah.
give me a message for someone who is a complete mess trying to be their authentic self at the moment.
Ow. Ow. This feels like I'm probably going to be speaking to like the child versions of ourselves and
I
to
was
other
going to
people.
say, send
Yeah.
yourself a message
Yeah.
because God knows it can be
I think
hard.
I would I think I would just say one, it sucks.
Yeah.
It's not easy. You are not the only person who is going through. I know it feels like you're alone. Um, you're not. Uh, I really like find the things that are, where the places where you do feel yourself and you do feel calm. Other people will act the way other people will act, and sometimes that can harm us, but that has no bearing on you. It's not about you, it's about the interface between people. Sometimes it's about society, sometimes about the behavior of other people, which they've learned from who knows what. But if you are on the receiving end of bullying and targeting, it's not your fault.
Yes.
You have not done anything wrong.
Yeah. I think talking back to my younger self who got bullied, I wish I could say that to the young girl
Mm.
who used to come home crying with grass stains on her knees from being pushed over. It's
Yeah.
not you, it's them, because that ends up giving you trauma and forming who you are as an adult.
Mm.
And then you become a over over carer because you're trying to compensate for your little self. It's so yeah,
Yeah.
that was a beautiful message from you. So I guess it's nearly been an hour. So Asta, thank you for showing up today with such honesty and insight because you have got a lot of it. Um, you are doing the work. You're shifting the culture while you're at it. And can you tell us where folks on here can connect with you?
Oh. So you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. So that's just Aster Cosmos. I also have Liberate Learning is part of my brand as well. So I have a little blog that I maintain. I will potentially do some other things under the Liberating Learning um, brand name. So watch this space.
Yeah, watch this space. This this person here is going to be big. So they're making a huge impact, and I'm in awe of you, and I'm celebrating you every step of the way. So thanks to everyone listening. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review if this conversation resonated with you, and share it with those who need to hear this because it's it's good stuff. So until next time, stay bold, stay fluid, and keep dominating diversity. Bye.